Hello, and welcome back to the Elemental I Ching. And we're here at my room in Wonderland, and today we're gonna explore and drink in hexagram 44, coming to meet. Or in the Gene Keys, it moves from the shadow of interference to the gift of teamwork to the city of synarchy. And it's the heaven over the gentle wind, the gentle wood. And this is completing this many-week cycle of the gentle wind, the gentle wood, these spirals of intuition, of intention, of the clarity of mind, and following our intuitive design into its clearest path, including its tiny spirals and its subtle, invisible influence of life. And now here it is, crowning glory, the radiant sun, the creative heaven, the creative yang, the beauty and freshness of life that is crowning over this gentle wind. So in the shadow, this quality is of interference codes, right? The interference patterns of life, the noise in between team dynamics, the resentment that is created in that bizarre, not quite fitting together, right? And in the chaos of life and the addictive cycles of life. So interference in the Bagua poetry is entropy and unease. It's the breaking down of communication. Welcome, Pleiades, come here. It's the breaking down of communication that is based off of this feeling of unease. And it's our stagnancy with that fear of unease, or it's our manic trying to fix the situation, but it's a hectic energy that's based off of that fear, that's responding out of that fear. So it actually creates those interfering ripples. It creates more of its own confusion in an attempt to escape its own fear of what's going on, of the change that's occurring. So as I was exploring this feeling of, I loved this word resentment, in team dynamics, and how that can mold and deteriorate and break up healthy team dynamics. And do we let that seed of distrust or misjudging, right? The distrust of others, and that actually creating more frazzled neurons, like more tender electric impulses with others, that fear that something is not going correct with your agenda, with your idea of what teamwork is going to feel like, with the truth of life. And so it causes fear, and it causes a reaction to that fear and distrust, or it causes a misjudging, which is you're just constantly addictive to that same energy and bleeding yourself out to that same energy. Because the trick, of course, is that in any relationship, work relationship, personal relationship, relationship to self, you're going to find your addictions. And if you don't fully let that story unwind and unfold in your life by being fully present to its energy, you'll just repeat that addiction in the next situation. And I know this in my life all the time of like, oh, I didn't get that I'm secretly dating my mother in my relationships. I need to get in right relationship with that inner feminine. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep calling experiences that challenge that projection that I'm actually not taking responsibility for something. And the same goes in work dynamic situations and teamwork building experiences. Where are my inner expectations, my inner addictions, putting my power outside of myself, and then creating this dynamic loop of unworthiness, of resentment, of confusion, of interference, the noise of reality. But the beauty of interference and interference patterns, I don't know if you can see this on my shirt, but it's these interference patterns, these tiny lines, and they all create these patterns together, the ripples of life. We're actually secretly navigating life through the interference patterns of the ripples from different experiences, different intentions, different creative and beautiful thought forms, emotional signatures, conditioning, trauma, excitement, and building off of one another. They're all these, every thought and sensation is causing this ripple, and the different ripples are interacting and exploring one another. So it can lead chaos, or it can be revealing this grand symphony of what's occurring. And teamwork has that relaxed look about things. It has this engaging with the fractal family of who I'm really supposed to align with for my work in the world. It has this deeper trust, not the misjudging trust that actually creates an enablement loop by, oh, I trust you, right? And I'm actually giving my power outside to you. No, I'm actually trusting in something deeper. I'm trusting in the sovereignty and in the connective spirit and in the fractal nature of reality that is constantly revealing itself. And this teamwork, it creates that heterarchy engine, right? Not that hierarchy is bad. I love that Richard revives hierarchy. Hieros, the prefix, means sacred, right? There's a sacred structure to the angels in that hierarchy. Hierarchy is not wrong. It's that masculinity intent that can create coherence when that's most appropriate. And heterarchy expands on that horizontally, like a mandala, right? A mandala is distributing energy equally through all out time and space through this mandala. So my question for the teamwork key was, who sits at the round table of my heart? My compatriots at Wonderland, my allies, and my dearest friends in my extended communities, they all hold seats. They're all parts of my personality that hold seat at the round table of my being. And I can feel that, and I can feel their insights, not and their reflections of insights that of my higher self or of my totality of my being, as we discovered last week. So I can understand that when I sense something that's interfering with coherence, it's not an external impulse that's actually making me a victim to its interference. It's actually a shadow archetype that's asking to be integrated in my round table. There's something not being communicated properly. So when I notice those resentment codes, when I notice those interference codes, it's about having the courage to show up to them. I just had a beautiful conversation with a dear ally of mine today, and it's just through that communication, massaging these elements of our communication where we don't let those resentment codes actually tear us from the inside out. And then we just have to rebuild the pattern again, until we learn how to engage with those codes, with the data, with the sensations of data coming through, and learn to be fresh with our intuition. Bring freshness to each moment of existence. Not just living off of the trauma codes from the past or the idealism and fantasy codes of the future, but use our intuition to guide our behavior, an unconflicted behavior, into each moment of life with this new fresh moment to really receive what is alive and be informed by the moment informing itself. To integrate these separate parts of my personality, represented by my friends and my enemies and my teachers and my lovers, all of them hold a seat at the round table of who I really am. And as I learn to trust the dream language of these reflections and integrate them more holistically and learn what tales they have to tell of me, it's like I get to sip from the collective wisdom of all these different streams. And I do believe that of the cultivation of our soul, that I feel like we have access individually to more information than we could possibly intake or create alone, right? With the internet as a great example externally, we can know from thousands of cultures and thousands of years of information is available at our fingertips. Way more than a single person could ever learn in their own single lifetime, right? We're building off the collective wisdom. And then and think of it like a microcosm to the macrocosm. There's that macrocosm wisdom, and then there's our individual spirit as a whole organism in itself. All these trillions of cells working together to make the miracle that is me. I mean, there's this profound teamwork going on inside my body. And interference codes are an important, disease, unease, not at ease is happening to remind me how my liver can communicate better with my kidneys, can let the blood flow, can let my lungs be cleared. They're all learning to communicate to one another. So when the intensity of physical sensations, of breakdowns and disease, there's an interference code that wants to be integrated into the larger organism's, healthy program. And I remember when I was hit by a car and I messed up my knee, and I remembered having this moment, this cellular conversation with myself, where my cells, I could sense and see and feel that they had the DNA. You know, we have these blueprints for the perfect body, you know, from the day we were born. It's still in there. The blueprint's still in there. There was just this trauma that had this memory of trauma that had been encoded on top of my base programming. And it was about returning to that base programming and remembering that truth from inside every center of every little cell. And that was the beginning of my whole journey, of my healing journey, my journey up to the Northwest. It was the big cellular awakening that learned how to start to communicate with the internal part of my body like that. And trust, you know, not just unease, not just living in the fear and the trauma and the quick fix this, and the frantic, manic, you know, entropic forces of reality that try to fix this unease, this fear. You know, there's a relaxed with the intuition, with the spirals of life, and then bring the freshness of consciousness, the light of consciousness, creating intention, right? Creative intention, bringing that alignment of spirit and sight and clarity of mind. And that's synarchy beginning to blossom as we learn to communicate as cells of a body together as one-on-one individuals in this grand human game that is a beautiful organism of our family, whether we are sick sometimes and different organs or not. You know, just as we learn our internal body to be in right relation and communicate with the intelligence of our body as it's communicating to us. So synarchy is a big concept, and I love where Richard expresses his visions of synarchy, and I love how Teresa Collins and Mitty and Tenmayo and my wisdom elders of the queens that I know, they speak of synarchy from this deep cellular blossoming awareness, and I can feel that too, and I love that reflection. And today I guess I wanted to add a voice because I felt the synarchy leading itself in this retreat we just had at the Into the Core. I felt this deepening of a hollow bone trust in the ceremony of the whole retreat. You know, beyond the masculine stick to the rules and the recipes, there was this immediately coming, you know, weeks before the retreat even started, there was this new trust and this new listening. And we went somewhere deeper than we had ever gone in a retreat before, because we had been all in our own ways as a community, as individuals, as small groups, and new people that arrived. You know, we were all on this journey of cultivation and of seeing ourselves deeper and healing through the roots of conditioning. And there was this very clear times and moments ramping up through the whole retreat where the collective really was governing itself. And that's a lofty goal to think about on a government economic level out there. But to taste it with people, to taste that coming alive, it helped me relight the faith in this collective self-organizing organism that we are. And remember, like the story I just told about my accident, my healing journey, just to remember that that is possible for ourselves, and the cells that we are as human beings in this larger organism have the opportunity to self-organize, to remember, to help communicate with one another, to remember ourselves whole, remember the different parts of ourselves whole. And synarchy is also this idea of the enlightened queendom, the enlightened kingdom, the enlightened archy, the synearchy, the art key, the potential of the mandala of all of us and of the enlightened ones, you know, and us as the enlightened ones. So I bring it back to the Taoist roots, because for me this whole elemental I Ching that's what has been breathing life into my body. And taking this wisdom that can sometimes be very intellectual and philosophical and breathe it into my body to reclaim the power of those thoughts into my body through breath. So in the Taoist, this work, you know, if you read the I Ching, there are these beautiful but maybe sometimes disassociative lines about governing. You know, these are wisdoms about governing the society, about governing the kingdoms, about governing people and the armies, about, and it has these very specific, like Jinky 7 talks about the different ways that the army can be interacting with the king or interacting with the people, and each line tells another part of that story. And it all came together for me in Qigong, in studying Qigong and learning Qigong with my teachers, of that these are not just metaphors, but these are macrocosmic orbits of the microcosmic orbit that we are. So the enlightened king is doing, in this, let's take the mythos, the enlightened queen, the enlightened being, the Vajrasattva, the pure Buddhic consciousness, the pure ones, the bodhisattvas. They are in alignment with their own microcosm. There's like a acupuncture point, returning the emperor to its throne, right? They're metaphors about actually reclaiming the energy into a proper alignment with the heart, teaching the general of the army, the liver, how to be in right connection with the kidneys, and not to steal energy inefficiently out of its own survival needs, right? The general needs to be in check with the rest of the society's needs. It's this beautiful realization that our bodies are whole cultures and societies, or maybe empires, like if the ego has tyrannically taken control. What is the state of affairs? What is our state of the union of our own being? Where are we at? And the enlightened king is that aspiration to be in the pure, unfiltered, no more stagnation. It's in full, fresh, beautiful flow. The beauty of clarity. The beauty of being in this reality. And then that expression, as the I Ching says, these words can go out to all four corners of the world, right? It's the pollination of the enlightened self becoming the enlightened collective, and vice versa, the enlightened collective informing the enlightened self. And there's this beauty of, that's why these teachings can actually help cultures and governments, or those that are studying the Pearl Star, the Prosperity Project, or maybe it's completely non-Jinkies related. All of the work that we are doing to help reinvite creative collaboration and co-creation with life and with nature, and these holographic systems that are coming online, and these learning communities that are sprouting, and these permaculture villages and re-inhabiting the village together. They're all expressions of this enlightened consciousness. But its most effective and its most sustainable form is because each individual is learning those permaculture techniques inside, to be in alignment with the culture inside, to be in the state of union. I love that right now. That's really going to be powerful for me. What is my state of the union address? Instead of not by bypassing what's occurring with politics outside of ourselves, because that's a reflection of our internal state, but not getting lost in the external affairs and ignoring where I can come into even greater balance inside myself. Because we are the source of interference. You can blame all you want. I can blame all I want. It's not going to fix the situation. And I've been mad this week. I've been raging. I've been feeling and grieving. I've been empty and dull. I've been so full of life that I can't even control it. I've been all of these emotions. And it's not going to help to project and vomit that out at someone else. It's just not. That's my choice. That's my path right now. So instead of quelling this volcano of who I am, I want to be in balance with my different organs, with the rage of my liver and the grief of my lungs. May I come into holistic balance with all of these emotions. And as a sovereign nation of all my cells, then I feel I can communicate more clearly with all the other sovereign nations out there, and the societies and the ambassadors that want to be born in our interrelational dynamics. So that's my path and my prayer to cast into the very end of this Synarchy Keys activation, is to come into my microcosmic alignment, into that enlightened society within me, into that synarchy that I am with my cells, and all the enlightened ones, and all the Buddhas, and all the Bodhisattvas that hold us infinitely. And whether you believe in that mythos or not, I know our cells remember that ability to be held in the golden ring, in the mandala of life. And then I can pierce into those interference codes and ask the right inquiries and play with the right energies to spark and inspire a more coherent transmission to emerge instead of diluting in my addictions and my distrustful nature and my blamings and complainings. They're just less fun than the music that gets created out of teamwork, out of a responsibility to be sovereign and deeply intimate and deeply listening and take the reflections and the feedbacks and to not let resentment, the seeds of resentment, break open the, destroy us from the inside. So I'm really breathing in all of these keys from the gentle wind and the gentle wood and staying strong in my sacred offering and standing up for this clarity that's beginning to unravel and spiral. And soon, very soon, we enter in a whole new cycle of the creative heaven and this Scorpio time and this great rebirth time. So breathe in these last few weeks of these keys that have been the gentle wind and the gentle wood, or just in your life. What signs and synchronicities, what whispers through the veils as they've been so thin and yet so full these last few days, these last few weeks. And where have the spirals of life been guiding you? And how can you shine the light of awareness there so that the synarchy is actually informed by our collective wisdom? It's why we share our stories with the collective. It's so that we all get to learn together. We don't all have to learn the same mistakes over and over again. If one of us chooses to fully embody the teachings and the transmission, not just the gene keys that's one reflection, but to truly embody wisdom and love and compassion, the ripples and benefit of that are vast. So each of us are on that aspirational journey. I feel that with anyone that actually sits through 20 minutes of me talking. There must be a resonance. There must be a fractal family that's guiding us together to do this work together. So I thank you, my dear family. I thank you to the Sangha that we create together. And I hope that we can continue to inspire one another. Inspiration, to breathe in spirit together and live in a good way on that path. On that affirmed path. Om Bindu Sato Hum. Thank you to the Buddha of Purity here that's been guiding, and of course to the Golden Path that teaches me so much. So thank you to you all, and I will see you very soon.